Whoa.
Hey, everybody, this is Dr. Kevin McGovern, and this is the Better Late Than the. Oh, no. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's the Prove It Live podcast because we're running late. So, again, I'm Kevin McGovern from Perfect Motion Sports Therapy, and today's episode number 26 of season 2, is a little controversial. Is the medical model in Major League Baseball contributing to the soaring injury rate? Let's get going. My partner, Mike Frary.
Hey, everybody. Was it episode 26? I thought it was
It's
27.
It's 26, yeah.
Was it? Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, of season 2, and we have to
Right,
figure out
right.
when season 2 ends. I mean, is there a cliffhanger? We gotta figure all that out. We don't know.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Prove It Live podcast. I'm Mike Frary from the Farm Baseball Performance Institute, along with the aforementioned Dr. Kevin McGovern of Perfect Motion Sports Therapy, and, of course, our fabulous producer at Huge, Ryan Gagny Fruit Cheese.
That huge.
We got a great show. We have a great show today. So we're going to continue a little bit from what we talked about last week. Try to get a little more in depth as to what the procedure is and what the protocol is for some big league teams. And we couldn't really find one. That's a bit of a tip of where this is going. But and we'll talk about, hopefully we can get into a bit of the trickle down effect of what that means for collegiate athletes, high school athletes, and if you're listening, your son or daughter who's playing ball, or you if you're a player yourself. But before we get into all that, of course, we must start at the top of the order. So, top of the order, Gagne.
Great. That was a great transition.
Thanks. You're welcome.
The top of the order, a couple of things to talk about. We're mainly a baseball, type podcast, but there's other sports going on, right? So, NHL playoffs are in full effect. NBA playoffs, a lot of stuff to talk about there. I know Mike had brought up a question off air about how often, I've been here watching NHL playoffs, which, first off, can we all agree that playoff hockey is the most exciting to watch?
I would agree if it's the home, I wouldn't get as excited if it's, two teams that I don't pull for, but I think I would take Bruins. As being a Bruins fan, I would take playoff hockey right up there. I mean, football, of course, because every game means so much too. But yeah, I'd put it right up there for sure. For sure.
Yeah, pretty much the only time I watch hockey is playoff hockey. So
right. And by the way, so the Bruins were dealt a real kick in the rear for game 2. For those of you that didn't watch, probably a lot of you didn't. I'll tell you. So up 1-0 in game 2 at home at the beloved, I still call Boston Garden, down 3-1. They came back in the third period to score 2 goals and tie it, took it into overtime, and withstood an early onslaught, offensive onslaught of from the Islanders. Regained momentum, had all the momentum in the world. One errant pass, breakaway for I forget who it was for the Islanders. Goes in on Rask, beats him near side as a lefty. That's another topic for another time. And game over. It's just like that. So, but what it did during this game, during the intermissions, they were going back to some other games, and in the Toronto in the Maple Leafs Montreal Canadiens game. Toronto was behind, and they pulled their goalie with 3 minutes left. I think they're down 2. And of course, within, 35 seconds, Montreal puts the puck in the empty net. And it's something that it's irrelevant to what we talk about of, this would actually be a good, why would you do that? Because I would love to know why they do that. I want to know the percentages. Okay. And I know, Ryan's probably looked them up or is looking them up of how often does that actually benefit? I mean, it seems like an archaic thing with all the statistics. I mean, we know now what works, what doesn't. We can look at statistics, and at least from the casual observer, every time I've seen that happen, and I mean every time, I don't think I maybe have seen it work once, if I'm being fair, maybe, and I'm just guessing, but almost every single time the team that pulls the goalie, the other team just ices the game. Right. It's usually when they're chasing 1 goal, right? Minute and a half left, 2 minutes left, whatever. They'll pull the goalie to gain an extra skater on offense. And they leave their net empty. And the other team gets control, puts it in the empty net, game over. And the craziest thing, Kevin and Ryan, I said this to you too, is after they score the goal, well, then they put their goalie back in. Well, now we're chasing 2 goals, so let's put them back in there. Like it just makes no sense to me. So, Ryan, do we have any sort of stats of like what's the percentage of teams that score when having that 6th skater versus not having a goalie?
People have kind of broke this down quite a bit. This is like a sports science thing done a couple years ago, back in 2019. It was calculated that on average, an NHL team at full strength has a 0.65% chance of scoring a goal in any 10-second interval of the game.
Right.
Okay?
0.65. Okay.
0.65 in any 10-second interval.
10-second interval, yeah.
10-second interval. Okay, gotcha.
The scoring probability jumps to 1.97% when a team pulls its goalie.
So it almost triples.
Right. And then it jumps to
Well, it does triple.
4.3% when that team retains its goalie, but the opponent pulls theirs. But when they go, yeah, exactly right.
Now,
so when they're shooting an empty net, it goes up to 4.3% for scoring a goal in a 10-second.
Now, speaking from experience, I've pulled the goalie twice, and mine's 100%. Oh, we still talking about hockey? Yeah, she's 12-9. Anyway, moving on.
You're gonna love to hear that.
Boom, boom.
Thank you. It's just comedy. See the sign?
So that answers the question. Now, I honestly did not know that coming into this.
Those are good numbers.
I look it up. Yeah, but I mean, it shows you like, yeah, you may be increasing by essentially what becomes a percentage point.
Yep.
You increase your opponent's chances of scoring by almost 4 percentage points.
Mm-hmm.
Three and change. So you're giving your opponent the advantage when you do that for 1% chance. I mean, so that by that standard, it basically tells you that at least 3 times to 1 at a minimum, probably more, right? Because you have to take the whole. There's a lot of games and et cetera, a lot of teams, but so I don't understand. So you have the that's known to the casual fan. Why do they do it? Is hockey, Ryan? And I know you know hockey a little bit more than we do, especially in terms of the NHL. Like, is that because it's in baseball is a very puritanical sport. We talked about that, right? And there's lots of like old traditions, like you don't step on the foul line. There's certain things that you do and don't do. They still use wood, right? When metal's clearly a better technology. Is hockey like that? Is that like just like that's how it was always done? So they just do it.
Yeah, I mean, when you look deeper into the stats, they have it kind of broke down in a little graph here where they're defining it as the percentage of time it's successful. This is going back to the 2013-2014 season.
Yep.
Success is defined as the trailing team either wins the game in regulation or, which is more common here, tying the game to send it to overtime after pulling the goalie, right? Among games with a 1-goal deficit, which is really the most common time you're doing this, and like you said, it's usually around the 1.5 minute mark, which actually was confirmed by some of this research as well. Successful outcomes when the team is trailing by 1 goal has been around 15% the past 2 seasons. So
here's probably a good
probably higher than I expected. That's for sure.
Here's probably a good
still
calculus.
Not good. But hold
calculus. On. Oh, sorry.
Well, hold on before we go into the calculus. I'm sure that's gonna be riveting. But
hey,
but what's the percentages of the other team icing the game? I mean, is it 85 because it's only 15% of the time, or I mean, probably not, right? Because sometimes no one scores and it just ends the way it ends. It ends at that score when they pull the goalie. But I mean, I don't know, it just seems very low, and every time that I've seen it happen, and I've talked to other people, so it's not just like I have this weird, propensity to catch, games where they pull the goalie and the other team ices it. But anyway, sorry.
Also, there are subtle nuances to this as well. I mean, normally you're talking in a standard 5-on-5, right?
Yeah.
You pull the goalie, it's 6-on-5.
Right.
There are the rare occasions where the opponent is in the lead, right? And they're on the penalty kill. So then you pull the goalie and it's 6-on-4.
Right. Sure.
you're having a 2-man advantage. The only caveat to that is when that team, the defensive team is then on the penalty kill, they're not penalized for trying to ice the puck, so they can just turn around and fire, and there's no penalty of bringing that back down.
Ronnie Hextall
run
as a goalie scored, right? I mean, a goalie can shoot it in.
Yep.
NHL goalies can easily reach that. But the other thing I was thinking about is like a 5-man. If you have the man advantage of 5-4, you're practicing with the 5-person squad all the time, right? I mean, that's what the game's like. Adding the 6-person, I mean, how much time does the team actually spend on that? I mean, it looks the way the speed of the game is so fast now that I remember thinking about this even in the just the recent games. Like the rink is almost too small, right? With 6 people there, it's even more congested. I mean, it's anyway. It just doesn't add up to me. It just doesn't seem to make sense, and I just see it over and over again. It's like, dude, you're just giving the game to the other team. I don't understand. But before we go any further, Kevin, what were you going to say about the calculus?
I was saying, this is almost synonymous with the sacrifice bunt, right?
Right.
Give it to team and out. Compare.
Yeah, but that's successful way more often.
Well, not the bunt. The bunt may be successful, but does the run actually eventually score? Giving a team, is it, what's the percentages on that?
Yep.
Getting someone on first base, bunting the second, maybe bunting him from second to third, but yeah.
Depends on the level, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah.
Level of play. But yeah, in the big leagues, I'm not sure that works. But I would be willing to bet, and I don't know this for sure, obviously, but I'd be willing to bet that it's more successful than
in baseball.
Yeah, than when you pull the goal.
Without question. Well, there are, believe it or not,
to that point.
Oh, we're still on hockey talk? I mean, dude, there's
hockey
seven.
Oh, we're blended in. We're blended.
There's 7 people watching.
Kevin, shut up.
Maybe 8.
The trend of baseball nowadays, the second happening a lot, less often than it used to. So the goalie being pulled in an NHL game is still happening on a consistent basis, where the sacrifice bunt isn't.
That's a good point. That's so the baseball people are seeing the stats and they're adjusting, and the goalie and the hockey people aren't.
Right.
Exactly. Well, I think the average age of a NHL coach is what, 62.
They're up there.
Anyway,
I don't know about that old, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. I don't know that either.
So there is we do have more playoffs, and by the ratings, no one's watching these playoffs either. That would be the National Basketball Association.
Dude, once they allowed the Euro step to be legal.
Dude, Robert Parrish was doing the Euro step forever. But I do believe if
Robert Parrish can't run fast enough to the Euro step.
So if LeBron loses tonight, it'll make the first time in his career that he has not advanced out of the first round of the playoffs. And also, I believe this first.
Well, when he's made the playoffs.
When he's made the playoffs. Yep.
Right.
And I believe that this first, if he loses tonight, or the Lakers lose, period, that both teams from the finals from the previous year will be out in the first round. Miami's already out, and then if the Lakers lose tonight or the next night, they would be out as well. I think that's the first time that's ever happened.
All right.
Cool.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
NBA, I think, yeah. That's again, another topic for another time. I'm so disappointed. I love basketball. That was my other sport growing up. I loved basketball, but NBA. I still like watching college basketball. I can't. The NBA.
NBA's ratings down 50%.
It's become NBA jams. It's like a video game. Ridiculous.
It's not only that. I mean, it's you're letting the players run the league at this point, right?
Yeah, it's pickup ball.
Like, and we won't stay on this topic too long. Again, this is local to us, so it's top of mind. But Danny Ainge, the president of basketball operations for the Celtics, just hired yesterday. Their head coach, Brad Stevens, got promoted to that job, so now they're looking for a head coach. And the arguments being made is like, well, who do you want to coach? Well, does it even matter at this point in the league? Like, who coach? The players don't listen to the coach anyway, right? The players are picking the players are basically the GM role already. They're doing the coaching role as well. Like, it's just a talking head figure. It's who do you want doing the press conferences after the game? That's really all that is.
The Celtics will interview a woman for head coach.
Yeah. I forget her name, but she was actually on staff for the Celtics a couple years ago.
Yeah, it's going to interview a woman.
Okay. All right. Hey, so no segue this time, right? So
going right in there.
We're going right in there. Oh, well, there's no good segue, right? So,
why don't we start with numbers?
Do we have any players that got hurt?
Well, everybody. So Ryan, why don't you just to start this? Why don't you read the numbers from 2015 and to now of injuries in Major League Baseball?
Well, wait a minute. Let's set this up. I think that's important. I think first of all, what it appears to be, I think from us and from fans, and from what I see doing what I do and running a training facility, a baseball training facility, and Ryan sees this, and Kevin, what you see being a physical therapist, is we see a lot more. It seems like a lot more injuries in the sport, and it has a trickle down effect. And you look at Major League Baseball, there are a lot of people on the disabled list. We'll get into the numbers, right? So Ryan will start to read the numbers here. And so what we decided to do is look at it is this trend what we think it is? And oh my God, is it ever? Right? So Ryan, now
it's probably worse than we think it is.
Worse. Now the stats maybe intentionally only go back to 2015, maybe intentionally, and we're still digging for some other, see what it was longer ago. But Ryan, 2015, how many people in the deal?
In 2015, there were a total of 408 players hit the what used to be called the disabled list, now called the injured.
Right.
That's for the whole year.
For the entire year.
For all of 2015.
All of 2015.
What happened in 2016? Did it get better?
It's funny you asked that question, Mike.
That's a great question, Mike.
In 2016, there were 472 players.
Interesting.
Right?
472. Now, was 2017 the year we actually had a little break in the trend, or was that 20? Was what we
no,
had
there's not.
No?
2017, we went up to 527 players.
Whoa.
Jesus.
527.
Yep.
All right. So next year's 2018. That was a good year for the Sox fans.
574 players.
All right. So this is going up. So now we're, almost 200 more than 2015. All right. 2019. 2019,
we took a break. I don't know if people were paying attention, but we went down from 574 to 563. So
all right.
Okay. But now just let me pause here, because all of these seasons that we just mentioned, there were 162 team games played. Every team played 162 games, right? In 2020, there were only 60 games played per team. All right, so let's recap those numbers. 2019, 563 players in the DL through 162 game regular season. In 2020, in a 60-game regular season, there were 456, which is more than there were in that 2015 full season.
Wow.
Thus far in 2021, and we looked at it, on average, teams have played so far about 55, 56 games, okay? We are already at 469 players. That's 13 more than there were in 4 more games last year. So we're a little under a third of the way through the season, or a little over the season.
So the injury rate is going up at an alarming rate.
It's skyrocketing.
Observation.
It's skyrocketing. This isn't going up 2-3 a year. And so, and Kevin, you're going to basically take the floor here. So before you do, let me put in my piece is that we have greater technology, greater knowledge, greater accessibility to knowledge than ever before, greater medicine than ever before, right? How is this happening, Kevin?
Just real quick, just because I think the stat is both mind-blowing, alarming, kind of hilarious at the same time. In that 2019, the last full season where we had the 563, right? Yep. There was a total throughout Major League Baseball of $869 million spent on injured players.
Wow. All right. And we're going to get into that and what that means. Million. So that's a good chunk of change.
That's hair shy of $1 billion.
Yeah. Which is also a good chunk of change.
Yeah.
Right? $1 billion. It's a good coin. That's some good coin. So Kevin, what gives? What's going on, dude? Like, how is this possible? Well, because the medical staffs are bigger around baseball, right?
Huge. Yep, definitely. And that's kind of where I started the first I started to look at this, and I found that at least what is printed on major league teams' websites is an inverted medical model. And what I mean by that is outside the walls of a college institution or a sports franchise, there's a medical model. And the medical model consists of people in medicine that have a license to practice, whether that's a doctor, a chiropractor, a physical therapist, a speech language. They've got taken a board exam and they're licensed. When you look into Major League Baseball, for instance, you will see people what appears to be, with titles like Director of Wellness, Director of Player Health, those words to me, when I hear director, that means boss, right? And those people seem to be unlicensed medical professionals or unlicensed. Not all the time.
Right.
Some, not all the time, but some of them appear to be not licensed, meaning they've taken maybe they have a degree in kinesiology, but there isn't a kinesiology medical provider. There's no such thing. So outside the real world, everything is pretty much dictated by Medicare. If you're a Medicare provider, Medicare is pretty much the gold standard. You can't get really on any other insurance panel for a doctor, physical therapist, speech, whatever, unless you're Medicare certified. Go fill all the paperwork, and then Blue Cross will let you in the panel. Other HMOs will let you in the panel, and then you can then bill insurance for your services. You've got a license. Some of the people at the top of this in Major League Baseball can't do that. So if they're outside the four walls of a Major League Baseball, they can't practice their craft and bill insurance. They're not a licensed provider. Now, I'm not saying that what they do isn't great. What I'm asking is, who has final say? We've all looked on YouTube, okay, and we've seen Major League Baseball players doing these crazy weightlifting routines. I can tell you right now, as a Yankee fan, Aaron Hicks, Aroldis Chapman doing these, like, oh my God, like, who's got final say to be like, hey, that is not a safe exercise to do. That is not how we should be doing this. Where's the preventative medicine that's happening, and who is making the final call? Is it the doctor, the physical therapist, or the kinesiology guy? And then you'll see other things. Rehab pitching coordinator. Well, when I hear the word rehab outside, I think doctor, therapist, someone who's got a license or a degree, not a person who's played Major League Baseball. Like, when you use that word rehab, that's got a connotation that we're a licensed medical professional. Now, is that what's causing all of these? Because the injuries are ridiculous. They're through the roof, and of those injuries that were mentioned, the rate of catastrophic injuries, meaning your Tommy Johns, which are now, infielders are now getting. This is a player, I forget who, is having a rib removed for thoracic outlet syndrome, a completely preventable injury. Matt Harvey had his rib removed. Like, crazy things are happening. This could have traction. It might not. It doesn't. The medical model of Major League Baseball doesn't mirror the medical model outside of Major League Baseball.
So, go ahead.
And is that a reason why that these injuries are so bad that they continue to go? Because the preventative, what they're trying to do for preventative medicine is actually causing these injuries, because the preventative medicine isn't focusing on things that should be happening.
Okay. So you guys sort of got into what I was going to mention is I remember 20 years ago, Kevin, you and I talking about the fact that, every team doctor in Major League Baseball, again, I'm generalizing here, but for the most part, every team doctor was an orthopedic surgeon, was a surgeon. So it was like they're expecting, right? And that's still mostly the case. So they're expecting the catastrophic injury.
Mm-hmm.
But I think so. If you were to ask, why is it not a doctor in charge of your medical staff, whatever? I think and again, just knowing the trends in baseball and just being in the community, I think the answer that you would get is like, and you did touch on it, is that, well, we're trying to prevent it. We're trying to get these guys stronger, so that they don't become injured, right? So like, if you have weak hips, you need to strengthen your hips. You're going to have, like hip issues, you're going to have lower back issues, etc. So they're trying to strengthen the guys and get them stronger, so that you are preventing those injuries, so you don't have to go see the orthopedic surgeon. But right, and that's all well and good, and I think that's great, and I think that's forward thinking, and I think at least a handful or more of teams in Major League Baseball are pretty forward thinking, right? I mean, you go back to the early 2000s, and the Red Sox hiring Bill James, and you had Billy Beane in Oakland, right? And they were starting to pay attention to stats that were outside the norm of baseball, right?
Yep.
And so that's where we started to see, like we talked about it, where batting average started going away, etc. So they are forward thinking. They are trying to solve the issue. It seems where are they going wrong? Because it's not working.
I mean, I don't. That's a great question. We don't know we're not in the boardroom of who's making the final decision. Just think of what you're talking about. Just look at, the teams in the North. So the three big teams in the Northeast, the Mets, the Yankees, and the Red Sox, all have a number one starter who's out with Tommy John, right? Of those three teams, maybe Luis Severino is the only one who gets back in 2021, right? Which would be well over almost 2 years for the other twos, like Syndergaard and Sale. Syndergaard just had a huge setback. He's shut down. There's been no mention of Chris Sale, who I believe was operated on in December.
It's supposed to be back in June originally.
December of 2020, right? Just like or 2019, right?
2019, yeah.
2019. Yeah. So he's not back yet, but like Tommy John missed a year, like the original. I mean, with this in 1974. So what is happening? Is it? And we mentioned this last night. Is it that these guys don't play in even if pain's on a 0 to 10 scale, if it's 0.5, are they saying no? We're down.
I think that's part of it.
That's part of it.
I think that's a big part of it.
Is money a part of it? That's
the bigger part of it.
Obviously the surgery is better. We would hope, right? Considering what happened in 1974 to now, we would But what I see in rehab, at least on my end, is like I mentioned yesterday, open heart surgery 20 years ago, cut up in your rib cage, went in there with two hands, put it back in. Rehab, cardiac rehab. Now they're going up through your groin. You're out in a day sometimes.
Right.
I don't see rehab has advanced that far. Like I see all this stuff, what I call in the penthouse. They're doing all of this stuff, but the numbers, the stats aren't any better. Meaning, if you look at curing back pain in 1974 to now, you're still looking anywhere between 20 and 30 visits. It should be less, right? Because the technology. But I don't see that even. You look at all the physical therapy numbers that, and journals people produce, look at depending what you look at, but I don't see that number coming down.
Or even if it was the same or more, but they said, well, but we now know that it used to take you 2 weeks, whatever. Yep. But now it takes 3 weeks, but we do that because we now know that extra week is going to prevent, right. Exactly. Right. To keep you from coming back. So I think, that's one, and I think what it comes down to sometimes, look at a guy like Sale, right? Is that they have so much money invested that it comes down to like, okay, we had him coming back in June. It's now comes down to what? All right, so now it's what? Maybe October, or not till next season, or what? But maybe October. It's 2 months worth. It's 2 months versus like the next 4 years or 3 years versus the next year. And I think because look at what happened to it was Strasburg, right?
Strasburg's out again.
Had a start, and then he's back out. And I think the teams obviously want to prevent that. But again, you can make the argument easily that shouldn't happen. That really just shouldn't happen. I mean, look, you talk to personal trainers, you talk to strength trainers now, and and I have mixed feelings about this, right? So I don't want to get into it right now, but they sound like they're doctors. The way that they talk, the language they use. They're a strength trainer now knows a lot. I mean, I was a certified trainer in the early 2000s, and it's a completely different thing now. And to be a good one anyway, and to really know your stuff, like they sound like physical therapists, Kevin, right? They speak
Yeah.
that language.
They speak the language, and again, the social media thing. But like we
Right.
talk about all the time, or at least when I talk about rehabbing somebody, there's a lot. I treat everyone like a building. A lot of great stuff in the penthouse. I think the parking garage is being missed across the board. Meaning, they're doing all this stuff. We've got all this video. We're talking about, kinematics, force on your elbow, blah blah blah. And I
Valgus
guarantee
nerve,
every single person, as soon as they lift their arms, this happens. They shrug.
Yeah,
Guaranteed.
right.
So the basics of movement that's out the window. I don't see that. That's just gone. I don't see it. I have never again seen any pitcher, any injured athlete come through my door in 27 years who does not shrug first when lifting their arms. So if that's not fixed, nothing else after that it's gonna just be injured. It's just compiling the injury.
But that still doesn't account for why there's more injuries now, right?
Well, I would say, it might be a component. I don't think, meaning that now these guys are throwing heavy balls, bench pressing like they're in the NFL, doing this kind of stuff on a track that's not quite, straight. It's a little off.
That's what I think it comes from. I think a large part of this is, and if you watch social media or on social media and you listen to people speak or post stuff, everyone's so against, cookie cutter, type of programs, but it's more cookie cutter than it's ever been now. I mean, it's like, there are certain, I'm sure there are different schools of thought, but you buy into one of them, and there's not a lot, there's 3 or 4. And it's, and we've talked about it before for pitchers. It's this uber strict regimen of, hey, you pitched today. Okay. How many pitches did you throw? Okay. All right. Tomorrow, don't touch a baseball. Don't even touch one. No, don't even, like, if you see one, run away. Get away from a baseball. Okay. What do I do the next day? Well, the next day you can throw. You can touch the baseball. All right. But go easy. Throw it light. Really light. No more than 20 feet. What about 21 feet? Dude.
20 feet.
Crazy? Get back to 20 feet. Right. And then the next day you got to throw it long. You know what I'm saying? And it goes on. And it's very cookie cutter. And the pitch count thing versus rest after how many pitches and all this stuff, that's cookie cutter. And I'm sorry, it's just not working. This is like not a knock on anybody, because again, I think it's all with the best intention. Everyone's trying to fix this problem, I think.
Oh, absolutely. No one's trying to hurt.
It doesn't benefit anybody
to
be hurt, right? I mean, guys are out, like, you're missing out on your investment in the big league level. College, you're missing out on a recruitment, on a recruit and potentially a scholarship. So no one wants it, but it's not getting better. It's getting worse. It's still going this way.
Besides what Ryan mentioned about the stat, there's no real stats on health. Like we mentioned last night, going in the late 80s, early 90s, start from the Blue Jays and go all the way to the Pirates. You're going to name 7, 8 outfielders in a 10-year span playing from the Blue Jays to the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Mets, the Pirates, the Philadelphia Phillies, that can throw the ball from their outfield position to home plate on a bounce or two. What do we have? Aaron Judge now, right? Maybe. And I've seen him throw balls that had 14 hops. So whatever they're doing from a training aspect isn't working in the outfield. Arms aren't getting stronger; they're getting, I'd say, weaker. So there's got to be some disconnect that there's not. Whatever we're doing training wise isn't projecting out to, number one, increasing the person's ability to stay healthy, and then 2, increasing their physical performance. I just don't see it, right? You don't see the speed, you don't see the arm strength all across baseball.
I'd argue that point a little bit. I think, overall, like infield, I think the infield arms are a lot stronger, right? I mean, David.
But now we're seeing infielders that have had Tommy John surgery.
Right, and there is correlation between velocity and UCL, right, in the ligament tear. So that could be a correlation. Maybe it is that they are throwing harder is one reason why you're seeing that. And outfielders, I mean, look, the game does change, and look at the shirt that I'm wearing today, right? It's this guy.
Oh, it came in the mail. Look at that.
Look at that. Oh, right? Smith. Yep.
So
Wizard.
Is he highly recruited today? I mean,
I mean,
the Omar Vizquels of the world. I mean, the guys
his
that were
athleticism alone would make him recruitable.
okay. All right. So sure, but it is
Vizquel probably not.
That's what I'm saying.
He wouldn't have the hitting numbers, right?
That's what I'm getting at, right? So like back then, shortstop was a position you absolutely sacrificed offense for, right?
Right.
Now you don't.
No,
right? Center field you used to as well, right? And then you'd have your bats in the corners of the outfield, the corners in the infield. So the game's changed for sure, but it still doesn't explain how you go from 408 an entire year on the disabled list to 574, just 4 years later. And what are we on pace for this year, Ryan? What is that? Did we even figure that out?
Yeah, I mean, on pace for over 1,000, right? You have to be.
If by simple math, you'd be looking at about 1,200.
That's crazy. So
I don't think it'll come to that. Obviously, no, but I mean that's
12.
Track it out. If you're looking at, we're just over a third of the season in. We're already at 4, whatever it is.
We're already way past the entire season of 2015, right?
Yeah.
Double, right? Wasn't
no 2015 was 408. We're at 469 right now. Okay. So we're way past 2015, and like you said, a third of the way through the season.
If we want to bookmark this date right now and put it on our calendar and come back to it at the end of the year,
we should.
We put an over-under right now. What do we put the over-under at? 600?
I think 600 is the number, and I would have to take the over.
I'm taking the over for sure.
Right? That's the smart bet if you're going to bet with the trend. And so look, and I'm sure you're going to hear like, well, we're coming off a COVID year, and guys really couldn't get out and train and see their trainers. And first of all, I don't buy that. I think people were finding a way.
There's 563 players.
Yeah, I mean, look, we found a way to train our players this year. I mean, some sure professional players are finding a way to get with the guys that train them. So
professional guys in here training.
Correct. Yes, we did.
One of them is the best pitcher in the majors right now. Like,
yeah, but yes, and so yeah, there's not an excuse. I'm sort of fishing. I'm trying to play devil's advocate a little bit here and try to see the other side, and it's hard. it's a hard stance to take. So, how does this get better? And by the way, I think more importantly, how does this trickle down, right? So this is what happens at the big league level. I don't know that you're going to see, it's hard to find numbers like this for the collegiate level because they don't have an official disabled list, right? But we see it. I mean, we see it. You're a PT, Kevin, so you see the players come to you. We see kids in our facility all the time, collegiate players, and they're rehabbing. Hey, why aren't you with your school and rehabbing? They're all rehabbing, and again, it's not just pitchers anymore. It's position players, and so we know what's happening at the collegiate level. And by the way, if the big leagues that has all the money to research, and some of these universities do too, right? Yeah. But they have all the money to research and to hire any number of people for a staff, for a medical staff, and between strength trainers and therapists and you name it. I don't know.
To me, that comes down to the whole money thing too. It would be interesting to see how many of those injuries, especially in the catastrophic end, are arbitration eligible. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Is it just almost the next man up mentality? I mean, I don't know. And it doesn't seem, and we had to kind of dig. I mean, there was that recent article, Ryan, that was written by Gammons. I mean, no one seems to be alarmed about this, right? No one's like, oh my God. They're talking about, well, everyone's talking about the baseball. Oh, the baseball is juice, but no one's talking about like these guys are so injured. Like no one seems alarmed by this to me. I don't. If they are, I don't see it. Like I know that.
It's become part of the business, Kevin. That's why it's become part of the business. It's like, you're talking about close to $1 billion.
$1 billion. Just so you know, that's 1,000 million.
Right. So if you want to know why you're paying $14 for a beverage, an adult beverage at a game, there you go.
That's just it's insane. I don't know what I'm sure there's no one right answer. It's probably a bunch of different buckets. I guess my question is, when is the alarm sound and be like, hey, we don't have a problem with the home run. Okay, we've got a problem with keeping people on the field to hit home runs or prevent home runs being hit.
To me,
I mean,
to me where the problem is, and I think that's important, but I think to me where the problem is again the trickle down, because everyone takes away from what the look at. You want to sell a bat, put it in the hands of a big leaguer. Kids are going to want that bat.
right.
You're right. You want your batting gloves to sell. Get a big leaguer wearing them, right? So the methods that they use at the big league level for pitch count, for days of rest, for what the kids do, that all trickles down into programs like mine, right? And we try to do, of course, our own research, and we're fortunate to have lots of resources. But a lot don't, and they're gonna just take hey, if the big leagues are doing it, they've done the research, so I'm gonna follow what they're doing. And so now you're seeing this trickle down into kids getting hurt, into kids having these catastrophic injuries at record numbers as well. And maybe that's something we get into next week, because I think we can find those numbers. We can find those numbers on what's happening to kids and travel ball, and it's not good. It's no bueno, and so that's why I think it's really because like they're the granddaddy, and everyone follows suit with what they do.
And that's the whole point of the podcast. That is the people see it on social media. Well, if so and so is doing it, then I should be able to do it too, because so and so is in the major league, which of course represents 0.00. I don't mean how many players make the majors, like 0.005%. So here's this elite person. You can't do stuff. I mean, I've got a kid coming in next week with a humeral fracture in two. I mean, last time I saw that, the only time I've ever seen that was Dave Dravecki, who had cancer in his arm. Remember that?
I remember that.
Yeah,
snapped in the throat. But it's happening. Just to wrap up, it's happening. I know it's happening at the collegiate level, and all you hear about is major league type of pitch counts again.
Yep.
Oh, he did what the day after he pitched? Oh my, that you can't do that. You're like, well, who says? Well, that's. Right. This comes from this big league club or whatever. And, I'm trying not to put names out here because, again, everyone's doing their best. But, and they're following suit. And so, and I can tell you, talk about numbers, less than 7% of high school baseball players, not high schoolers, high school baseball players, less than 7% play college. That's all college, D1, D2, and D3. So you're talking about small numbers, right? So, I mean, in terms of just exclusivity. And so the young kids look up to those guys. They look up to them. I think travel programs look up to the bigger universities into the professional ranks to see how they do things. And, there's lots of drills that they would take from them. They're going to follow suit with the health.
All right. Yeah, I definitely think we should continue to explore the youth athlete after with the trickle down of this for next week, for sure.
Agreed.
All right. What do we got next, producer extraordinaire?
Now we have. I mean, we have to figure out where we want to do this. It's on you guys. Your movement of the week, your tip of the week.
Well, we usually do movement first, so we can continue with that trend if Kevin will like.
All right, let me see if I can share my.
Yours is usually a video. Mine's not.
All right, I'm going to share my screen here. So my movement of the week is one of my my core movements. Can we see me?
Yep. How can we miss you?
That's not fun. That's not nice. So my movement of the week is one of my pillars of movement, which is scapular depression. If you can see my mouse here, the upper trap, which is the muscle that extends basically from the top of the shoulders to the back of your head, is an overutilized muscle. What I mean by that is it's on all day holding our head up. When we lift our arms, the opposite muscle of the three-part trap, the lower trap, should really pull down or depress the shoulder blade to turn the shoulder blade as if like you're turning a boat. And that movement is called scapular depression. And it's this movement that is pretty much out or not functioning correctly in every shoulder, elbow, neck person that I have seen. Okay, and it's a lot harder to teach men how to do this than women. I actually have my daughter here sitting on this stool, and the best way to teach women is to kind of have almost your you're trying to unhook your bra or pinch your bra strap together. That downward pinching movement. Men, I say to take their shoulders and try to put them shoulder blades and try to put them in opposite back pockets. But we want the shoulders to come down and in as if they're making an X or a cross, because that is standard kinesiological movement. When I lift my arms up, my shoulder blades should go down and in, and what that means is really they're turning to allow the shoulder to move freely. When they don't turn, we bang our rotator cuff up against the top of where our collarbone meets our shoulder blade. That's called an impingement, and that is a movement that gets overhand throwing athletes in a lot of trouble. So scapular depression. You go to my website at perfectmotionsportstherapy.com. There's plenty of links to my YouTube page where you will see that movement, and that is something that I teach every single person from an ankle sprain to a neck sprain. That motion is vital.
Good stuff.
Mikey, all you, buddy.
Okay. As soon as I started talking, my video started lagging again. So if I can get it back here.
What's up with this camera? Maybe you only have like a.
Dude,
Do you have to put coins in it? Or is it like 50
maybe
cents?
that's what it is. I'll do that. I'll do that just in case. All right. So my tip of the week is a little bit more about a philosophy when it comes to infielding. So we've done a lot of hitting stuff, and for those listening out there, if you played a little league, if you have a kid playing a little league, when kids are taught to field the ball, right? I'm talking about infielding here. Okay. Taught two hands and then to pull the ball into your belly button. Okay. And like Ryan's doing right there. Okay. And my tip of the week is don't do that. Okay. And I've talked to a couple, big league infield coaches. One in particular who's widely known as one of the best in the business.
Yeah.
Yes. And all you're doing is wasting time with it. It's an extra step that's not needed. It doesn't help. Once the ball hits your glove, it should cease to move backwards, right? Once it hits your glove, it should stop, and it should only then move in the direction of the base that you're trying to throw to. Also, a lot of errors happen when players will prematurely trying to be pulled. They're trying to time it perfectly where they're fielding it and pulling at the same time. And when you're moving in the direction of the ball, imagine if you had a field that way or hit that way. Imagine if you had a hit a pitch as it was moving behind you. It would be really hard, right? Or if you have to feel the ball move in this way, you don't want to give with it. You want to go up and through. Okay, you want to have your knuckles flat on the ground, your wrist sort of forward this way. It feels up and through the ball as the ball comes this way, up and through. You start to give with it, you can easily miss, as you can see, right? So that's what happens. Pull the glove in a little bit too early, you hit the toe of the glove, or it goes underneath entirely, and that's not good. All right, so up and through the baseball. One variation of that I think is okay is going up to the ear into that throwing position. So again, out in front, you field it straight up here, okay? But again, it's still up. All right. I prefer up and through, but up. Oops. I just knocked my mic over. Up and to that throwing position is also another way to train it. But I would highly recommend you work on training up and through the ball and stop giving in. This is something that was taught for years and years. I have yet to have one person give me a good reason why that we do that. Oh, it's to secure the ball. Have you seen a glove today? That ball's secure when it's in the glove, especially if you're fielding with two hands like you're supposed to. You catch with one, you field with two. And maybe next week we'll talk about catching with one. That actually is another good one that I like to talk about. So that's my tip of the week. Yeah.
I like that.
All right. So I think we all know what's next.
Well.
No, we have a pause. Okay.
We do? What do we forget?
The question of the week.
Oh, yes. What do we have for that?
We have a question of the week?
I don't know. I thought you had one.
The question of the week is, why are we stopping for the question of the week if we don't have one?
The question of the week this week is, why would you do that?
Yeah. No, we have a question, but we're saving that for next week.
So is it time?
It is time.
Why would you do that?
Why would you do that?
I don't know.
All right. So this is a good one.
Oh, boy. Mike, just play like a second. I can't watch this. I'm not
Okay.
even I just can't watch. I'm about to.
So again, oftentimes when we look at a why would you do that, we understand the intent. Okay, we understand the intent of the drill. This one a little perplexed. Okay, so what you're watching here for people who are not watching, I'll describe is a coach giving some side toss and
Mike, your microphone's going out.
We're losing Mike.
Hey, Mike, we're losing you. So well, you fix. So he's doing a little soft toss
Right.
in front, and this young gentleman is hitting the baseball with the knob of the bat, literally the knob, not the barrel,
the knob.
the knob. He's
Right.
back. So like a pool cue, like he's taking a regular swing, but he's focusing on hitting the ball with the knob, and he's actually doing a pretty good job of making contact with the ball.
Which is
We'll use that term right loose because I mean, he was trying to hit the ball with the barrel of the bat. This would still be.
Boy, I think we're losing all mics here today.
Going ball with the top of the bat is not what we want to do, and I'll let Mike dive into why that is.
Yeah. So you're this may shock people, but you're never going to hit a baseball with the knob of your bat. Okay, ever, right? So, and by the way, all this is going to do is help promote casting, getting your hands away from the body. Because if this pitch isn't perfect, the toss isn't perfect. Right there, that last one. Okay,
He's just doing this.
Right, it was too far away from his body, so he had to reach his hands to hit it with the knob. But you're teaching to get your hands out away from your body. The other thing is like seems like the coach is paying no attention to this player's posture, lower half, his load phase, all the important things. So again, and I'll tell you, I think so coaches will still say, bring the knob to the ball, bring the knob to the ball. I actually even heard Tony Gwynn talk about that once when Tony Gwynn does nothing like that. Okay, side the point. But no good reason to do this other than like really learn how to cast, get your hands away from your body too early, drag your barrel, by the way, because in order to hit that ball forward, the knob has to be pointed towards the pitcher, which, I mean, unless you've got some like weird shaped bat, the barrel is going to be pointed, the end of the barrel is going to be pointed straight behind you. So you're going to be lagging that barrel. So it's going to make you cast. It's going to make you drag the barrel. Neither one are good, or end up like having to use too much of your wrist to swing. So one of the most bizarre drills I've seen, and maybe it's more popular than I am aware of, but
so I do have a question about this, Mike. You had
lay it
mentioned
on me.
a couple podcasts. We had unfortunately talked about Albert Pujols 2 minutes before they released him,
which was perfect.
But like if you freeze that there, so when you talk about bat drag, you had talked about that Pujols keeps the barrel of the bat in the zone for an inordinate amount of time. Is this drill, because when you talk about drag, so maybe to explain what drag is compared to what Pujols is doing.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense? Because
it does.
Okay.
I have to find something. Hold on a second.
Oh, he's going to find something.
I'm not allowed to keep bats enough. So hold on.
He's getting a bat. Here he goes.
Here we go.
He's got a bat.
I'm back. So this here is going to.
He appears to have a foam roller, but that's okay.
Not a foam roll. It's actually, this is one of those
not foam roll.
So my daughter does puzzles, and you can roll up the puzzle when you're not done with it.
Neat.
Keep your pieces. Yeah. So here's what a knob to. This is what the knob to the ball does. You see how my barrel is far behind
and almost cocked back is what I would.
And I'm going to want my barrel out here at least. Yeah. So the idea is to get in the way of the catcher's mitt as fast as possible, right? So I want to, as soon as I'm starting to turn, my hips are turning, my core's turning, the barrel's going to turn right now in front of the mitt.
I got you.
Again, I might foul this ball off. It might not necessarily be fair, but I'm not missing the ball. In fact, even here, that's probably a fair ball. So I'm going to turn. Right. And this is just my top hand doing this.
Yeah.
This is also why we teach our hitters to, when they load. Now, this is more the advanced kids, the older kids.
Yeah.
Have them kind of drop the barrel here as they start to rotate. It used to be like this straight 45 degrees.
Right.
I want less than 45.
You want to be relaxed as they turn.
Well, I want the barrel to drop.
Yeah.
The barrel to drop, because when I turn now, you can see the path of the barrel. This is what Pujols was very good at. I get in the way of the mitt really quickly as I continue to rotate, right, and extend my hands. I'm going.
And now show me what that kid was just doing.
This.
That. So you're missing. You pretty much have 1 point to be able to make contact, or you're going to miss it.
Also, in that drill, if the front toss or the side toss is out here,
yes,
I'm doing that. Look at how bad that is. Look at my hands.
Right. You won't hit that ball.
No, I mean, if anything on an inner half, if I'm used to coming out with my hands this way, any even low-level pitcher is going to recognize I can't hit anything inner half. And even outer half, I'm only going to be able to flick it with my wrists. Right?
Okay, so is that why, some of these new patterns of hitting are missing balls?
Yes.
That are especially up. I see a lot of guys just cannot hit the ball up in the air. They're beaten with 92 miles an hour. They're beaten upstairs.
Up in the zone, you mean?
Up in the zone. Yeah, so, absolutely.
This is a perfect example. We talked about this on one other podcast episode, was people mistaking launch angle for attack angle.
Okay.
Right? So they think, I want to hit the ball at a 30-degree angle, launch angle. Okay. I have to swing at this angle. No. The pitch comes in at a -8 to -10 for fastball, right? And up to -14 for breaking ball. So in this range right here, and you want to match the plane. And if you're hitting properly, you stay through the ball. That's going to create backspin. The ball is going to run off this way. Do you see that?
Yep.
Right. So the ball comes off at a higher degree of angle that you're attacking it at. Right.
So basically, you want any drill that you want to do hitting wise is almost, for layman's terms, preventing the catcher from catching the ball. Right. You want to be in that whole path the whole way from his glove, straight, wipe it all out, cover that whole area. So you interfere between the ball getting to the catcher.
It's like the example I gave about you have two people, okay, at the opposite ends of a football field, but they're on the same hash mark. Okay. Yep. They both take off sprinting from each end zone headed towards midfield, right? They're supposed to run to the right through.
Yeah.
Their chances of contact are 100%. It's just a matter of what side of the 50, right? Depending on speed. All right. So that's all we're trying to do, is trying to stay on the same hash mark as the baseball, because if we swing in a circular path, it's the equivalent of this guy taking off and this one running in a circle. Now the chances of contact are not right. They're much lower. So
that's a good
trying to stay on plane, trying to match plane, and we're trying to swing slightly upward. And so that when we get, center or lower half of the ball and we extend through, we're going to drive through. It's going to come off the top with backspin, and it's going to create loft. Loft equals distance. Distance equals doubles, triples, home runs.
All right, guys. Well, we're at the end of our show. Good show. And we'll be back next week. Same time, same channel. And we'll probably be expanding on more youth injuries with as a result to this medical model or lack of medical model. All right.